session which is a dependency injection using a Java configuration. So we'll take some little more deeper look into this configuration approach. There are some properties, external properties I want to create, our profiles, kind of the way it is creating an application context, how and the way in a little advanced way of looking at. We'll see an example. Okay. So, and if you look at this configuration, okay, I'm creating a data source as a bean, okay, and I've given all these details like driver class name, URL, user ID, and password, and all these details are now part of my bean definition. Okay, I've hard-coded all these details in my Java configuration. Okay, so most of the time I don't wanted to do this hard coding inside the my class by bean. Instead, I actually wanted to externalize this configuration so that I can change this username and password without even touching the Java code. So when I go and change the username and password, I'll have to go and build this Java class file for this Java and run it. Once I have this jar file, if I'm externalizing this, I can just go and change the property file and just rerun the same Java classes. Okay, so if I want to externalize this, I need to go and create a configuration. I need to go and create a property file for this. Okay, these property files will be externalized. Okay, the way I do it is, okay, I go and create that, but I need to load them. Okay, and when I load them, I will have the key and value pair. So in the property file, if you look at, I'll go and create a key and value pair. Okay. Similarly, if I have the other property files or any system environment variable, if I want to access, which is will have a similar pattern. If you look at any JVM system properties, like -d option or Java options variables, if you look at, it will have a variable and equal to value. Okay, so it is in the same pattern. Whether you take the system environment or Java properties or servlet properties or any system environment variable or JNDI. If you look at all this, the way we do a lookup using an ID. So what Spring has done is, for all this kind of environment, it is created an abstraction. Okay, the abstraction which is there in the environment. So environment is an object used to obtain the properties from the runtime environment. So all this, the properties are coming from many resources. So it could be coming from JVM system properties, Java property files, servlet, or system environment, or a JNDI. The same environment object is used to fetch those by using a key, and appropriately you get the replace with the values. Okay, the way I can configure is I can go and create this environment an object here, and I go and fetch this using an ID. So env.get property with a key. So what I do is I go and use this all this information. I'll go and create it in the property file, and I'll give the key for this. A db.driver equals to driver name. Okay, so db.url equal to URL, db.user equal to username, and password similarly. So I'll create that in the property file. So using this environment objects, I go and do a get property for each them and replace with an actual value. Inject the actual value at the runtime when you create this data source. Okay. The way I can actually, I need to load that. So if I want to use this environmental object, it has to load those properties. So the way I create this property file by providing this the property which I created. So app.properties file, which is I created, and it is available in this location. So using this prefix, which is a class path, that means the class path is an it's a prefix to where to go and search this app property file. Whether do I need to search on the file system or the class path in any jar files which is there in the class path environment variable. So if you provide this class path as a prefix, and this file will be searching in the whatever the jar files which is there in the class path, it will go and search and get that app property file and load that property file. Suppose I want to load this property file from the file system, okay, then I will go and use this file as a prefix. Then I need to go and change here is a file colon. If you are on the Windows, you need to specify like C colon folder name and wherever it is located, this app property files. If you want to download or get the file from the HTTP, wherever it is located, you can use the HTTP as a prefix. So based on where you located this property file, you can use appropriate prefix to load it from. Okay. So using this annotation, which is the property sources, and you provide this property file location with a prefix, appropriate prefix to load it from. So this will actually load the property file, and then abstraction, which is like environmental object, will actually get this values which is specified in the key using the property sources which is loaded by the system. Okay, the environment object loads this property file. While getting it, it will also look at all other property files, which is like system environment property, other environmental properties, which is automatically gets populated. And in order to this, whatever you loaded, this property file is also get used by this environment object. Okay, so that's about the properties or externalized property files get loaded, and these properties will also get accessed by your environment object. So using this env, I can also go and get the system environment variable, JVM environment variable, JNDA, other stuff. Okay. Okay, that's about loading a property files from the different sources. Okay.
Manjunath, the question is, if I'm passing a JVM initialization parameter -d, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So how will, if I'm passing a couple of -d properties during startup, how will it get mapped into the environment?
Yeah. So the way it works is when you say -d, it's the JVM parameters, right? Option.
Yeah.
-d options, which is the parameters which is passed. So normally, how will you access that parameter? You use that system dot get properties.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And using that ID, you go and get the value which is passed during the JVM creation time. Okay. What Spring does is Spring provides an abstraction for that. Okay. So using this environment object, okay, you say environment dot get a property. Okay, give the same name here, same key, whatever you've given.
So in that case, I don't have to put the @property source also if I have to access -d, right?
That's right. So those are already there in the system to access it. Yeah. So what I'm talking here is, if other than that, whatever you wanted to create it as a property, for that you need to use this.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So let's say this is very interesting. If you look at, okay, I have 3 different environments. So one environment I have the dev, okay, and another environment I have a QA, and another one is a production. Okay, so what I do is, and I wanted to load this one of the property file. I have like 3 property file. At the runtime, I wanted to load only one property based on another property which is there defined here as an env. This env may be coming from the JVM startup options like -d. So I would have given this env as like -d env equals to dev or QA or prod. Okay, if this is coming from that environment variable, which is JVM options. Okay, so what it does is the property sources, before actually loading it, first it will go and replace this value which is there in the dollar within flower braces. Okay, so this is the one way of resolving an environment variable. Using an this expression, it will be able to resolve this. So dollar with a placeholder, this specific key will be fetched from the environment variables, or it could be coming from the system properties or environment variable, and take that value and replace this first. Okay, The value could be env, it could be holding either a dev or qa or a product prod. Okay, that string will get replaced here. Now you have the app dash. Let's say if I given the env as a dev, app dash dev dot property file will get loaded. So this file will, this property file will get loaded by using this property sources, and then all this db driver URL user password will be value will be given from this property file whenever you access. So based on the environment, that specific property files will get loaded, and appropriately the driver and URL and username password will be picked up from that property file. And this will be very useful when you are dealing with a multiple environments, and especially it is controlled by one environment variable, and you don't need to worry about connecting with which property file I'm dealing with it. Clear? Any questions here? Okay, that's about making an external. Sure.
Yeah. So I'm not sure, but whether are we going to see any examples with XML configuration?
When you say XML dependency injection?
Yeah, and this class path, environment variables, those kind of things.
Okay. I'm not clear about your question. So are you asking that XML dependency injection are we going to cover, or?
Yeah.
Yes, XML dependency injection will be covered later.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So now we'll go to the profiles. As I said, okay, the profiles option is created to group the different beans together. Okay, it is actually groups. Okay, let's say I have the dev environment, and I have a QA, and I have a production. Okay, and if you look at this, all these three environments, the common bean is data source is here, data source and data source. And another one is connection factory is here, and connection factory, connection factory. Okay, so these two beans are common between dev, QA and production. In case of dev, the data source will be pointing to the embedded data source. In case of QA, a data source will be pointing to, let's say, MySQL. And in case of production, let's say it is pointing to application server specific data source. They will be doing the JNDA lookup. So in this case, the way you provide the definition for the bean will be different, right? And now in the previous section, we saw saying that we'll create a different infrastructure configuration file, right? So that way I can go and replace the specific environment infrastructure configuration file. That's one option. What is another option? So what I can do is I can actually go and define all the beans like dev, QA and production with having like totally 6 beans. Even though the names are same, I need to keep the same names, but it will be there in the different group. When I say group, it is called as a profiles. So I'll go and create grouping all these beans together, and I'll name this as a profile, and I'll give the profile name. So now I have created 3 profiles. One is a dev profile, QA profile and production profile. Okay. So now all these 3 profiles are having the same bean definitions with the same ID. Okay. When I go and create everything together, I will have a problem because the set of beans are same name, so which violates the basic things. Okay. So now I need to enable only one profile, either the dev or QA or production. Only those profiles I need to enable from one of this. based on the profile name. Okay, so now I have an option to go and enable one of the profile during the startup itself. So when I'm going to create this application context, let's say I created all these profiles with the profile name. Okay, it is there in one configuration file. Okay, one infrastructure file, let's say. Okay, but during the startup, somehow I need to indicate to my application saying that enable only dev, so that what it does is during the runtime it will go and active this profile and create a beans out of this. Only given point one profile can be enabled. Okay, there could be possible that I have a different profile which is for a different purpose. I can combine this dev and web, QA and web, production and web. So like this I can do a combination of it. Okay, so here point here is I have a same beans which is grouped in the different profiles, and at the given time I can have only one profile to be activated. Okay, that's the concept of the profile. Is this clear? The concept here is grouping the different beans together and activating one profile at a given time. Okay, so now we'll see how we can actually create the beans and group it as a profile. So I'm going to create a separate, let's say, a Java configuration class. Okay, and I'll put a list of beans in that class, and for this class I'm going to make this profile as a dev. Okay, by using this annotation, which is like at a profile annotation, I will put this profile name as a dev, and inside that I'm going to put all the beans. One is data source and connection factory algorithm. So inside this, the data source, I'm building the embedded database. The embedded database is something like where I have the schema and I have the test DB to upload. Okay. In case of production, I'll be pointing this data source to do a JDA lookup from the app server, or I'll point it to an Oracle server or something like this in the production environment. Okay. The way I define is using this profile annotation with a name. I will go and define it. Okay. Now, how do I activate the given profile? Okay, let's say I have a multiple profile like this. As I said, that one is like dev configuration and another is production configuration, which a profile name will be product. Okay, now I need to activate one of the profile using an option. So in case of standalone, okay, the way I can do is I can give this -d option, part of the system properties. Spring.profiles.active is a key. Okay, and I can go and activate one of this profile which is a dev. I can say dev, production or QA, and another could be like I can combine the other part which is not conflicting profiles. I can say JPA or web, things like that. This is an independent of it. So only the common thing will be between dev, QA and product. I need to enable one of them to create the data source or connection factory, things like that. So this is one way where you can enable using a standalone application using a -d option from the JVM parameters. Okay. In the unit testing or integration testing, I can go and use this annotation saying that at active profile, and within the bracket you can provide profile names, dev or QA or production. Okay. In case of web-based application, in the web.xml file, I can actually go and configure in the context param saying that this is the parameter name spring.profiles.active and this is the parameter values. So if you look at the common thing is this is the key, like spring.profiles.active is the key where you can use to fetch the profile names. Okay, so using a unit test, JUnit test, you can use this active profiles. Using this annotation, you can activate, and during a standalone, you can use a -d option with a spring profiles active equal to a profile name. In case of web, you can use the context parameter to do this. So these are the different three environments. Or if you wanted to do this on the programmatic way, using like application context, you can do that. So what you can do is you can go and create an application context by default constructor, then activate, set the profile, and then load the configuration file to create it. So we'll discuss that later. There are different ways where you can go and activate the profiles. So let's say, so when I say I have this class, yep.
Yes, one question. So when we say -d spring dot profiles dot active, so it is a standard string defined by Spring, or we can have our own definition over here?
It is a standard which is provided by Spring.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, so which of the following will get selected when you enable this -d option with the Spring profiles active equal to JPA?
It's second one.
Second one, so this will get selected.
Yeah.
What about this?
No, because that JDBC doesn't match with that active profile which is being mentioned above.
Okay, so what about this?
I think it doesn't match at the red profile. So maybe my best case will be with JPA.
Hello?
Yes?
Yeah, Manju. Both will be loaded, the first one and the second one.
Correct. So since I have not specified anything as a profile here, this will by default it will get loaded. Okay, only which is having a profile which will get activated. Okay, so both will get selected. Good. So that's profiles, the way the profiles are created.
So if both, yeah, Manju. So if both the things are getting selected, right? So that conflicts, right? Most obviously, we might have the same methods in both the classes, so that it might actually create a conflict.
No, if you look at this, okay, the one which I'm not having a profile is this. Like let's say all this transfer service customer, so all this I have not attached with any profiles because I wanted this Spring Beans to be created part of my context. Okay, so which doesn't have any profiles associated with this. No profiles. Only the one which I wanted, I will add the profile, either this or that. Okay, so based on what I provide, this plus one of the profiles beans will get created.
I got it. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So that's about profiles. Okay, so now if you look at this, tell me, I have this account repository, okay, and I have another two beans which is like transfer service 1 and transfer service 2. Okay, now the transfer service 1 is actually calling set account repository, calling this account repository as another bean call and getting injected, and there is one more where this has been injected directly here, JDBC account repository. Okay, so now having this bean and these two beans getting injected this account repository, which is the best option, best implementation? Is this a method call or an instance variable gets created? Is service 1 or service 2 is the best option? Which is the best implementation here?
Hey Manju, I feel it's the first one, since that instantiation is handled by Spring, so whole life cycle of that bean will be handled by Spring. So that's my view. Thanks.
Good. Okay, so here since method call is creating a bean, by default this is a singleton, right? If you look at, so this object gets injected here, and in this case the brand new object in new instance will get created, and that object gets injected to transfer service implementation. Okay, the best option is to call through a method. Okay, so let's see. Now if I call like account repository and account repository here, let's say I'm going to call like this. Okay, so if you look at, I have this account repository. I'm calling this transfer service, which is like injecting account repository, and I have another account service, which is injecting the account repository. Okay. Now, first time when I call, let's say this is going to create a dependency injection, transfer service will call this account repository. Okay. When I call this, it is going to create a JDBC account repository with a new object, and the object gets returned, and that gets injected. When I'm calling again account repository, okay, it's going to call this guy, and again, like the new JDBC account will get created, isn't it? If you look at from the Java perspective. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now, how is it possible to maintain a singleton behavior as we discussed as a default behavior? So we said by default, how many times you do a lookup for the account repository, it will return always the same object which is created already in the beginning. Okay. So now I have a problem when I call the account repository 2 times, and this guy is going to create the 2 objects. How does it actually works in case of singleton behavior as a default?
Inject account repository once as an instance variable and then use it.
But in the first place, you need to create that bean. So are you saying that I'll go and create this account repository bean in some other class and do auto wire and
No.
start using that?
So maybe one of the methods just put a null equal to null condition created, else don't create it later. In transfer service or account service method.
Okay, how will I know?
No, I mean, so if this, what you're saying is all these 3 methods might be in different classes, is it?
No, it's in the same class, same Java
Okay,
configuration.
same class. I can still have an instance variable, and so before I use this variable, I just call account repository. If the object is null, I call account repository. Else, the object is already initialized, and then I pass that object. Yeah.
Okay, so what you're saying is here you go and create an instance variable as an account repository, and before returning you assign to that and return that object, and here injecting you put an if condition, check whether if it is a null. If it is a null, you go and call, otherwise you go and inject from the instance variable. Is that what you are suggesting?
Yeah.
Okay. What if I have a lot of dependency injection need to be done?
Hello.
What if I wanted to have a multiple, in the setter method I will be able to inject only one thing. Okay, let's say in the constructor dependency injection, okay, I will have to again put this another, I want to pass this account repository, reward repository, and restaurant repository.
Hello.
Hello.
Manju. Yeah. Yeah. To add that, to reduce the code redundancy, we can move that if condition to account repository method itself. So there we can check whether the instance method is null or not. If it is null, then initialize the new variable and then return it along. So passing on, continuing that answer, we can automatically provide in one method itself instead of defining in 2 or 3 or multiple methods, which are actually calling the account repository method.
Okay, that's another way of doing it. But again, like I need to go and do that for a lot of spring beans or most of the
Yeah.
spring beans, because I don't
Yeah.
know who is going to call this. And
Hey
now,
Manju,
yes.
I feel that the method calls that we are there, so there we are using as method calls. So instead of using those method calls, just remove those brackets, then it will be just like dependency which is being created by the first definition of with the @bean, and we are done.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying like remove the dependency, the configuration itself.
No. See, for example, there we are saying that service dot set account repository, and here we are having this method call, right? So there we are those brackets at the end.
This
So
bracket.
instead of just make, yep. So instead of that, just make it as, account repository, and at the first line over here, we are having that account repository, and here it is being annotated with @bean. So it will create a direct dependency, and we don't need to do anything.
Okay. So it will work for all the cases.
I feel so.
Okay.
Not sure, to be frank.
Okay. Got it. So if you look at we have multiple solutions to take care of it, but it's all like you need to make sure that 100% from your side, right? You will have to go and put those code changes. Okay. But what I expect is I wanted the Spring to take care of this, because Spring says when I call this method, it is going to make sure that it is always returning the singleton object, singleton behavior. Okay, and I don't want to go and do any changes to my Java configuration classes. Okay, and somehow Spring has to take care of it, returning the same object every time when I do the function call. Okay, when I say account repository, and here also account repository, I wanted the same object which is created at the beginning. Okay, and I want let Spring to take care of it. I don't want to go and put any conditions here and if condition or make it singleton object manually myself. Okay, the way it is being achieved behind the scene is the Spring will actually go and create the kind of proxy objects behind the scene. Okay, the way it does is, okay, let's say I have this class which is like app config is my Java configuration class. Okay, when I'm creating this app configuration class with this annotation and I have all the beans inside, okay, internally Spring will actually go and inherit extend this app configuration class and create this as a proxy object, and inside this proxy object it will go and re-implement all this method which has a bean annotation. Okay, and here in this all the methods which is annotated with the bean annotation will get redefined here, and in this method I'm going to put a logic there which is a kind of generic logic. So what the logic is, first I will go and check in my container, is this bean is already available in the my context. If it is available, and I will take that instance and I'll return that object. If it is not there, what I do is I will call super.account repository, and that super.account repository method, whatever it is created, JDBC account repository will be object will return, and that object I will put it into a container first time, and next time onwards I'll go and check in the container. If it is there in the container or context, I'll return that object. That's a kind of logic. Okay, here it is. Like if you look at, if the bean is in the context, then return that bean. If not, else call super.account repository to get the bean and return that object every time. So this way, I'll just create only once object and I'll keep it in the context. Every time I'll get it from the context. Okay, and this is been achieved by using the inheritance based proxy object. This inheritance based proxy object has been created by using there's a library called cglib, which provides a support for the inheritance based proxy object for you. So it takes this Java configuration classes, inherits by using this extend the actual configuration, and does this redefining the class, and inside this you will have a logic to get it from the context first. If it is not there, then call the super dot that method. Is this clear?
Yeah.
Yes, Manju.
Good. And this happens behind the scene. behind the so framework will take care of this, so you don't need to worry about doing this. So whenever you are calling a method like this, okay, account repository and account repository, and this guy will actually call the first inherited proxy object method, and inside you have a logic to take care of it. So that is how it has been making sure that each and every time when you do a ref, it is always returns the singleton object rather than creating a new one. Okay. So what we have discussed in this second session is we have discussed about the making an externalized property file and loading a property file, and also there is a Spring provides this environment abstraction where it can be used to access this using a key and get the value from the system environment variable properties and JVM parameters. That's one thing. And also,
Manjuna, so if I'm going to put in a scope over there, so the behavior automatically changes it.
no, it is still scope is still this inheritance will be done. Okay. Here it will check. I mean, we have just given an outline of this how it is actually done, and so in case of proxy scope as a prototype, okay, Spring always maintains only a definition. Okay, whenever there is a scope, it will go and create a new object and return that object for you.
So that's again taken care by the proxy.
Yes, yes. So you don't need to worry about the Spring will take care of that. So what I'm showing here is how actually what happens behind the scene when you do this as a Java.
Okay. So one common question, actually, one of the person who answered the previous question, he actually answered it in this way. So till this time we have been used to this concept of in Spring when you actually instantiate an object, we are actually creating an object which will not be managed by the container. So from here on, every time I put in a bean annotation, the object will still be managed by Spring. So that is the thought process, right?
That's right. Okay. Spring will apply all the whatever it is supported only on the beans which was created by a Spring container. Okay. Other beans outside the container, whatever you create manually, which is not part of the container, all the features will not be applied on it. Okay. Because Spring container doesn't know those beans.
Yep. So it's inside the @ configuration and @ bean very
Correct.
specifically.
Correct.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. So we also discussed about the profiles, how we can actually group the set of beans together and give a name, and the way we can access those beans or activate the beans from the different environment. We saw that how the J profile, J unit, and also we saw the standalone and from the web environment as well. We can do using the programmatically as well. And the last one which we saw is Spring actually creates a proxy for your configuration classes to allow the scope to control. Any other questions?